Okay, folks, thank you very much for coming again to another Founders Night by Founders Market, hosted here at Plus 10. Another enthralling episode coming up, featuring Mr. Noel Lynch, CTO of DeltaStreams. When I was first introduced to Noel on the way to the meeting Noel, I asked how good is this guy at coding, and I was told he doesn't write code, he excretes it. And it is true. I've seen him produce code and develop, get stuff out the door like no one else. When Noel takes on a job, it gets done. And certainly DeltaStreams did well when they partnered up with Noel. We take it from there now?
Yeah. What's good? Can you switch up to the
No.
Thanks, Antonio. Right, so DeltaStreams, we're awesome, and if you don't like us, you must hate humanity and the planet, right? Because DeltaStreams, we basically work in waste management, and what we're trying to do is a very noble task, and we're trying to basically get industry to manage their waste in a much more efficient manner. You would think that this is a no-brainer, you really would, but in actual fact, it's not. It's far from it. Like, industry struggles with this because basically industry has archaic structures in place that doesn't allow them to kind of change very quickly. Like, it's the same thing with multinationals. When a multinational changes their idea of what they want to do, it normally takes around 5 years before that will manifest itself. And this is especially problematic for startups because basically startups, everything changes every week. With multinationals, this stuff takes a lot of time to change. Okay, but basically, to introduce myself, who I am, my name is Noel Lynch, and I'm CTO of DeltaStreams.com. From a startup perspective, what a CTO means is that I'm the hairiest, smelliest guy in the world. Okay, no investment company will invest in a company unless there's a guy in there who looks like he's got a really bad person hygiene. Right? You have to have the guy there that's got a beard and basically has a couple of flies wafting on them, right? CEOs, they're the guys that do all the magic. They're the guys that sell the thing. Again, the only reason why my CEO let me do this is because there's nobody here with money. Right? So basically, it was a happy accident. My CEO, Andrew Sullivan, has actually been building these solutions for industry for the last 15 years. He works in industrial visualization. So he's been doing visualizations for risk management and waste management. And just through happy accident in a pub, he just happened to meet, and he just basically said he has this idea of a solution, and I said, well, I can build that for you. And lo and behold, 4 years later, here we are. Okay. So what is the problem? Like, if you have a startup, if you have any company, like, you have to have a problem that you want to solve. Okay. There has to be something there that you think that needs to be solved. Okay. So Andrew, the CEO of the company, has spent 15 years working on that particular problem from a graphic design perspective. Okay. So Andrew basically identified what exactly is the problem with waste management. Okay. Oh, sorry. Why is that there? Oh, sorry. What is our solution? Yeah. Our solution. Our solution is that we are a disruptive enterprise software solution for the environmental, health and safety, and waste management sectors. We robbed this from a Snoop Dogg lyric. We came up with a very, very innovative solution that it has been disruptive. Our traction in the market has been ridiculous because basically nobody's seen anything like this before. And when I demonstrate it to you, you'll kind of go, this is stupid, this is simple, this is how the hell does this not exist? Okay, we've had waste managers in large, like multinationals, turn around to their IT staff and say, why don't we have this? Why didn't you build this? Okay, the solution is that simple, right? And we have done nothing crazy here, So why? So the problem with waste management is that it's an area that's highly regulated, intensely audited, massively underexploited resource-wise, poorly understood, and it's incredibly dangerous. Right? So I'm going to say a couple of things anecdotally here. I can't obviously name the companies, blah blah. But there was one particular company. A guy picked up a bag, okay, and he just picked up the plastic bag, and he got nicked by a syringe in the plastic bag. That syringe had been used in a carcinogenic environment, okay? So that guy had to go for a number of tests, blah, blah, blah. That shut down that area for a week, okay? That's anecdotal. I obviously can't tell you who it was, but there's companies out there that are getting all their recyclate, dumping it into bags, sending it off into landfill, okay? And they think it's going to recycling, but it's not going to recycling. The pizza boxes that you're eating there, that's contaminated recyclate. Nobody reads this thing that they say on the bins: dry, glass, paper, plastic. Nobody reads that. They're going to go glass, paper, plastic. The minute you put something wet into a bin of dry waste, it's unrecyclable. It goes to landfill, okay? Or else it goes to very, very poor quality recyclate. Right? So the minute you get your Coke can, you kind of go, oh yeah, like I'm recycling, ain't that awesome? No, you're actually not. You're contaminating clean recyclate. Right? The best thing that you should do is push your wet recyclate into a plastic bag and your dry recyclate into a plastic bag. Okay? Companies have cottoned on to this because basically companies are paying a small fortune to get their waste recycled. And only 15% of that recyclate is actually recycled. So 15% of the things that we like, like all gather together and think we're fantastic because we're recycling, we're happy, create the universe. No, it's not. 85% of that's going to landfill. Okay? So we think we're recycling, but we're not recycling. The problem is segregation. We're not segregating correctly. Right? So we're basically taking a whole pile of stuff, putting it out there, thinking that we're doing fantastic, putting it into bins, putting it out, and Viola comes along, collects it. Viola comes along, tries to segregate it, and kind of goes, well, that's polluted, that's polluted, that's polluted, that's polluted. What is this, sorry? Okay? Companies have cottoned onto this and realized that actually, you know what? Dry recyclate, for example, paper, that'll make us a fortune because you just sell that back because it can be recycled. It's a closed loop system. Okay? You get a PCB, a simple thing like ink cartridges, from printers. Every company in the world, how many print cartridges do they go through every month? Thousands. Large multinational will go through thousands of print cartridges every month. And what do they do? Take them in a bin. You properly handle that waste in terms of you decant it properly, you clean it out properly. You've got a proper dry recyclate with no pollution in the actual container itself. The ink is all, it can't be recycled, so the ink goes off and gets dumped or gets incinerated or whatever, and your plastic makes you money. So in other words, your print cartridges can make you money. This is not a joke. This is not some kind of aren't we happy for the earth? This is not some environmental, I like to make the world. This is far from it. They reckon by 2025 we'll run out of copper. By 2021 we'll run out of the color red for LCD screens. The mineral is going to be gone. We're exhausting every supply that we have on the planet. Tin is going to go by 2030, I think. The mines are the future of the waste dumps that we have now. All right? So do you think any company in the world is thinking like, sure, that'll be grand, we'll just get this stuff later? Every company is resource hungry. Every company needs resources, okay? Especially manufacturing and pharmaceuticals. They need to keep going with resources. At the moment, we're exhausting resources and we're not replacing, right? Because basically once you take a resource and you exhaust it, it's just the nature of the universe or the nature of planet Earth. We can't replace it. We can't build another planet Earth and mine that. Our mines in the future are going to be waste dumps. Okay? So every company in the world at the moment is having this closed loop policy with regards to waste. In other words, like if we make it, if we use it, then we're going to use it again. Reuse, reuse, reuse. And these people are not, they're not, hippies or anything like that. These people are seriously corporate entities. Marks and Spencer spent 100 million 3 years ago on a recycling program where they basically said every single thing that we make or single thing that we throw out is going to be reused. Okay. Last year, Marks and Spencer's made 200 million profit from the waste alone. Okay. These companies are not in for the laugh. You know, they're in it, like it's not just part of a green agenda. Like the green agenda that people talk about is nonsense. There is a green agenda. It's basically sustainability. You know, it's sustainability. You know? I'm like it's, you know, the idea of the green agenda is a kind of like a myth that's spread around the press, but when it comes down to it, it's sustainability. The Premier of China, when he resigned 2 years ago, his last speech to the Chinese government was about sustainability. He basically went, there's too many of us and we're using too much. Okay?
Which is why China's trying to go electric about cars.
Yeah, and that's all modern Western economies are trying to go as renewable as possible, you know, because they all see the writing on the wall. You know, it's only countries like resources, like for example Canada and the tar sands and the Gulf states. They're the only people who are still investing in this stuff, like, you know. I'm like, you know, we read stories every day about, like, you know, all the doom and the gloom and about, like, you know, climate change, etc., etc. But behind the scenes, there's a massive push from industry to become sustainable and renewable, and it's not because of any like ideal motivation. It's because basically they know that, like, you know, in order like to fulfill the capitalist model, if we want to be sustainable, or if we want to be sustainable with regards to growth, we have to be sustainable full stop. Okay. 5 years ago, I was in a conference in London about for fresh fruit and vegetable industry, and the entire thing there was sustainability. In other words, like, how do we keep our fruit and vegetables on the shelves for an extra week? That's all. They were just basically like, and how do we keep, because we hate sending out stuff out to landfill. You saw the French government came up with a policy there during the week where no food and waste can be wasted. We are hitting a point now where there's too many people on the planet. Okay, and we need to start reusing what we have. There's a finite amount of resources in this planet, and we're just completely taking this over now. Okay. So anyway, so as I said, like, you know, it's underexploited resource-wise. In other words, like, there's lots of potential that we can take with our existing waste, but it's poorly understood. For example, we all think that we're doing great, like, you know, by putting the Coke can in with the paper, but the Coke can is, if you put it in upside down, it will drip onto the paper, it'll wet the paper. Wet waste, useless. Okay, so again, it's poorly understood. It's also incredibly dangerous. Like, you know, we work in pharmaceutical industry and manufacturing industries which produce seriously toxic stuff, like, you know, and now there's ways of unearthing that, like, you know, but the bog standard guy off the street who's, like, you know, his job is to basically take the wheelbarrow, move from A to B, doesn't realize that what he's carrying the wheelbarrow, if he spills that, could burn his foot off, right? And so it's a very, very dangerous industry, you know.
In some countries you can't drop drugs to litter. You have to bring it back. If you want to trash drugs, you have to bring it back to pharmacy.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah. I mean, there's like lots of. We're looking in Western Europe, like, you know, there's been a lot of very proactive stuff on this, like, you know, and like, around the world, it varies. The United States is very poor for it. Like, you know, the EPA in the United States is toothless, but EPA in Europe is incredibly dangerous. I mean, it's incredibly, you know, you just do not want to screw with them, you know. And for good reason, like, you know, there's been horror stories in the past of stuff that's happened, for example, in Germany, you know, stuff that was dumped into the Rhine. It took them 20 years to clean the Rhine, you know. So anyway,
the river, obviously.
Yeah, the river. Yeah. Like, so as well as that, we are in a situation now, thankfully, where it's highly regulated. Like, you know, if you want to sell, if you're a pharmaceutical in Ireland, and if you want to sell your product in Europe, you have to pass incredibly stringent tests, you know, and as a result of that, it's intensely audited. Okay, so there's a guy going to turn up to your plant every couple of months and kind of go, right, what's your procedure for this? What's your plan for this? How do you deal with this? How do you deal with that? You know, and if you don't have the answers, you fail. A failure on an audit costs a fortune, huge amount of money. All right. However, these are figures, and these are actually real figures that came from 2012. The cost of a 3-day accident in any pharmaceutical is on average 145,000 sterling. An accident means somebody falling over. It doesn't mean somebody dropping sulfuric acid underfoot. It means somebody falling over, tripping over overly. Okay. There, anecdotally, there was companies, somebody bumped into a box, fell over, bruised their shin. Right. The clean room was shut down for 3 days, and every environmental manager was summoned in there and asked to explain the environmental policy for that room. Okay. The reason why they do this is because if you fret about the small things, the big things will take care of themselves. Because if something went wrong in one of these big places, we're not talking about somebody bruising their shin or bruising their knee. We're talking about a Bhopal. You know, remember the Indian Bhopal disaster? You do, yeah? Yeah. We're like, yeah, I'm like, so that's what we're talking about. That's the scale that we're talking about with these pharmaceutical companies. Like, you know, the stuff they're dealing with is incredibly hazardous, you know, and they realize that, and that's why they're so anal about it. Okay. As I was saying, closed loop systems. The recovery value of 1 ton of copper at the moment, or no, actually in 2012 in the market was €3,800. Copper, the crap that you like, old phones, you throw them into a bin. Okay, old computers, you throw them into a bin. Inside, like, you know, if you're in an office and your computer doesn't work, and you say that computer doesn't work, there's something fundamentally wrong with it, chances are it's running Windows, you throw it in the bin. Okay, when you come along to your IT staff and you get, yeah, that's screwed, you just throw that in the bin. The copper that can be reclaimed from that machine, okay, and from all the machines that go bust every day, thousands of them in every industry, 1 ton of copper is €3,800. Okay, so rather than piling everything into one bin, giving it to a waste management company, that waste management company charges them $5 grand to collect this massive bin of waste machines, take them out, bury them in the landfill, you can actually make $4 grand. Okay. So the problem that we've experienced is most waste management solutions are only concerned with post-gate. So post-gate is an industry term for basically when waste leaves this plant. Okay, and the problem with that is that they're interested in logistics. In other words, like how does our waste get from this location to where it's supposed to get to? Tracking, in other words, like, you know, has everybody signed the correct documents? And disposal / recycling. In other words, like, what do we do with it when it gets to its destination? The reason why they're so obsessed with this is because waste management used to be a very, very unregulated area. I don't know if any of you seen Sopranos. Okay, that's not too far from the truth. Okay, basically, guys were taking waste, right, collecting, kind of going, no bother, look after that, and just dumping it. Okay, so you get an incredibly hazardous waste being dumped into a river, into, you know, a landfill somewhere, not properly tracked, not properly disposed of. Okay, so
it's the same type of clientele, because I've seen a couple of efforts of people trying to start up their waste recycle things, and just a lot of things go on. This is in Ireland, so it's not just
no.
specific. This is, I suppose.
No, this is
so,
you know,
if they're at that kind of thing in business, then they're probably doing the very same thing with the waste that we all think is going to get recycled.
Oh, completely.
Completely. And that's, I think there was a big gap.
It's cutting corners, shortcuts.
And people don't know that.
Well, that's why the legislation is so strict now, to prevent that as much as humanly possible. I'll tell you a story about a company. I won't name the name, but they actually, back in the 80s in Ireland, the waste management industry was a bit, you know, lackadaisical, and they actually employed a guy to drive around after trucks that would, like, you know, from these contractors who were collecting stuff. They employed a guy to drive around the trucks, and like, unbeknownst to the waste company, and this guy would report back and ring them and say, "Yep, they made it to the site." Because a lot of these guys were actually taking the trucks and kind of going, "See you later, guys. I'm off to Germany there to dispose of that," and going farm woods and just dumping out into the Lee. That's not a joke, like, you know? But these companies were that strict about it, you know, because if that comes back to them, it's a massive PR disaster for them, you know. X company polluted River Lee, you know. I mean, it's a no-brainer for these companies to basically be that strict about their waste management providers actually providing the service they said they would.
To be clear, they added to the pollution in the
So anyway, so the solutions that we have at the moment for waste management, we call them pre-gate. Okay, so like so there's post-gate, which is all about logistics and tracking and all that. But at the moment, what DeltaStreams is focused on is on pre-gate, stuff that happens before the waste gets on a truck. Okay, and at the moment, the only two solutions that we can really see are training and standard operating procedures. Okay. The problems with these things are as follows. Training. Training is expensive from the time and cost perspective. Okay? It takes time to train somebody. It takes cost to train somebody. Number one, you take the guy who's supposed to be doing his job off the floor. Number two, you have to get somebody to train him. Okay? And this training isn't cheap. Okay? It requires domain experience. Basically, you can only be trained by somebody who knows what he's doing. Okay, and a lot of these people are on short supply. It's the same as anything. People who know what they're doing, they cost a lot, right? And it's subject to change in regulations. So what you got trained in 2014 could be completely irrelevant for 2015, right? I don't know if you're like I watch this stuff, but you probably don't. Like tankers, like of any container, they have hazardous symbols in the background. Those hazardous symbols change every year based on regulations. So, for example, the French are much more highly regulated than the European Union, but the French then introduce regulations into the European Union that requires all tankers change the things that they have at the bottom of that tanker. In other words, like saying carcinogenic or hazardous or biohazardous, etc., etc. It all makes sense, but it's a bureaucratic nightmare, because the French have to submit this into the European Union. The European Union has to kind of go, that's okay, that's okay, that's okay. No, the rest are not fine. And the problem is then it takes a while to ripple through all of the European Union. So in Spain, they might pick it up for another 2 years, etc., etc. Or in Italy, they probably don't pick it up at all. So, but it's highly so regulations change constantly. Every day the regulations change, right? And so what happens is that you got a guy who just trained you on how to dispose of a particular hazardous chemical, and then he comes along, gets a phone call saying, "Oh, that's all changed now." He's like, "Well, I just trained 100 people on how to dispose of this chemical and make it inert. Now I have to go back to them and say, right, it's no longer this acid you use, it's this acid you use, because this acid we found out is now carcinogenic. So if you use that acid, you might get cancer, right?" So standard operating procedures, exactly the same thing. Expensive time and cost perspectives. Somebody has to sit down there and write it. Okay, that takes time. You have to pay that person to go out of his way and write this procedure. Again, this person has to be a domain expert. They can't just hydrochloric acid. Sure, just throw that in the river. Somebody has to know exactly what he's talking about when he's dealing with it. Okay? Somebody has to have a background in either environmental health and safety or waste management or chemistry. Somebody has to know how to fix this, right? It's again subject to change in regulations. Regulation change, all the SOPs have to change. If you've ever seen the amount of SOPs that are in a pharmaceutical company, you'd be terrified. It's a small library of SOPs, and that's just for the stuff that they're dealing with right now. Okay, and the quality varies. So basically, one guy who's like, let's say he's from a chemical background, he writes all these shit hot SOPs. But the thing is that he's dealing with a floor full of people who maybe, have no idea of chemistry. So he's like, distill the compound acids into the compounds, blah, blah, blah. And the guy was like, I don't know what your man's talking about. Seriously. That's a real problem. Because basically the guy who's putting the thing on the forklift and driving along, he's not a guy who's going to be up to speed with the latest development in organic chemistry. Yeah? But the guy who writes the SOP is an organic chemist. So he's basically like, the following is the procedure, blah, blah. And you're talking about low literacy, okay? You're talking about guys who might not have ever gone to college or just might have finished school and got into a job and just ended up there. So you're talking about all different kinds of people and trying to communicate to each other in all different kinds of language, right? So The problem is though that if that guy gets in the forklift and picks up the the barrel of some kind of incredibly dangerous chemical and is just driving down and drops the barrel, like for whatever reason that happens every day in factory floor, like a forklift will tip over something or knock into something. I've done it myself, and something spills, and rather than kind of go like, okay, I'll just put that back up, but that spill could actually cause something to lose life. That's the kind of dangerous chemicals you're dealing with. Like, if that guy spills that barrel and realizes what's in the barrel and what has happened to that, the chemicals in that barrel, then obviously that person is going to stop and think and kind of go, shit, yeah, I better call somebody. Okay. Standard operating procedures also require validation. So in other words, like, just because you wrote it doesn't mean it's correct. All right. A lot of these pharmaceuticals have or IP that is very, very sensitive. So obviously people might not know what's in the compounds that they're actually driving on the forklifts. Okay. So they might kind of go, that's built there. Is that bad or good? Okay. So then, and that's actually for pharmaceuticals, that's their IP, like, what's in their compounds. And obviously they don't want people, they don't want the entire world knowing what's there, because then they lose their IP in the market. Okay. It suffers verbosity. So in other words, like, people like me end up writing, right? People who just waffle for a living, right? Often fails to communicate. So in other words, like, right, how do I dispose of this particular chemical? Well, consult Appendix C there now, and there's a subsection there, but make sure you check out the note there at the end as well, because so you end up with a massively verbose document. Like, you can end up with a standard operating procedure for all waste items in a plant that could span to maybe 2,000 pages. So you're hardly going to turn up to a guy, like, who's got through the English and things, and he's going to go, what do I do now if I spill that? There you go, it's in somewhere in there. Okay. It requires dissemination. So in other words, whenever that changes, right? So let's say you're EHS manager, and you've got 1,000 people working on your factory floors, okay? And one thing changes, in other words, like, no longer drain this, like, no longer put this thing into the drain. This now has to be inerted. He has to kind of go along to 1,000 people and make sure they all understand exactly what he's doing. So he's like, lads, we can no longer do that. We all have to do different things now. Okay. Diversioning is often poor. So basically, like, this happens a lot in the industry, like, where people are running off things that are maybe 3 or 4 years old and they don't realize it. You got to bear in mind these pharmaceuticals and multinational organizations. Best practice in Boston might be 5 years out of date compared to what's in Singapore. So Singapore is still happily dumping mercury into the river. Boston is basically trying to sort it out, but Singapore doesn't know because they can't disseminate. Collaboration is often lacking. This is again through dissemination, like, so EHS managers are not involved in the whole process, like, so it's one EHS manager in the global office, basically, or global headquarters, kind of comes along and says, we no longer put Coke cans into the red bin, we put them into the green bin, and then everybody's like, why are we putting them in the green bin? They don't realize that, and what they don't realize is that then all the waste management procedures in their own plants have to change as well, so it has a massive ripple effect. Okay, and the review process can be lengthy, so sometimes, and it can take months, if not years, before somebody kind of goes, okay, what we shouldn't be doing anymore is putting syringes into plastic bags. They need to go into metallic containers or plastic containers. Okay, even though it's a no-brainer, because of the review process and all these organizations, the amount of meetings you have to have, etc. So basically, SOPs and training in the waste management industry pre-gate is very poor. And this is something that we've gotten anecdotally from all our clients and all our customers. Okay? So how does DeltaStream solve this, right? What we did is something really simple. We did a very simple thing. And Andrew, the CEO, had been doing this for years by hand for the pharma industry, but then he decided he would automate it. And we just basically developed a new paradigm for SOPs and training. Okay? So we took the existing kind of way of doing SOPs and the existing way of training, and we just said like, maybe this might be better. Okay. So we had a couple of approaches to this. We had visual communication. So every item of a waste can be summarized into a simple waste stream graphical representation. Okay. In waste management industry, it's not just you put something in a bin, it's what happens to it. Okay? Often you have to do something to the waste item. Like let's say the printer cartridge. Okay, you've all got printer cartridges at home. Actually, no, let's take the Coke can. You've all got Coke cans at home. Right? You flush out the Coke can because basically the chemicals that are in Coke are highly acidic. You flush out the Coke can, you dump it into your wet recyclate, not into your dry recyclate. Okay, and then you basically push those two bags. Maybe you have two different bags for dry recyclate versus wet recyclate. You put the bag with the dry recyclate into the dry bin, the wet recyclate into the wet bin, and then you just move it to the front of your house and somebody collects it. Right? That's all we're doing. That's basically a waste stream is the instructions of what you do there. That's how we're saying. We're saying basically take this, do this, do this, do this, put it there. That's all we're doing. It's morally simple. Okay? Really, really simple. We've developed lingua franca, visual language. Lingua franca means basically language that anybody can speak. Right? So there's no longer hydrocloxing, blah, 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 blah. It's acid, or it's this thing is caustic, this thing will burn the head off you, this thing will cause you cancer. We're reduced language into a much more simpler form. Okay. We also bias the language to suit the stakeholders. So in other words, that people who are working in that area and in that industry, they can only speak a certain number of verbs. Right. For example, in this one, we have what do you do with your waste at the end of the entire process. And we have stuff like it goes either to animal feed, biomass, compost, donate, incinerate, etc., etc. Simple terms. And there's a finite amount of them. So nobody's coming up with like jargon, or nobody's coming up with some verbose language to try and baffle somebody else because they want to make themselves sound smarter. It's just like, here are really simple terms that everybody understands. Okay. Dissemination. We automatically share and update and communicate your edits and best practices to all stakeholders. So in other words, anybody who actually has a genuine concern about or any interest in how they handle waste automatically gets updated on all the waste practices via mobile or okay. We review, validate, update, comment, and share. So in other words, it's a cloud, Google Docs for waste management processes. Okay. Now the poster that's here is a training poster. Okay, but the software does something different. This is an output of the software. Training. So this is basically training. So this is training that doesn't work properly.
Recycle stickers.
Yeah, that's actually a feature. That's not a bug. All the posters curve the corner. But basically, if you imagine that you've got a whole pile of bins here, right? And you're coming up and you're kind of going, what do I do with this particular weird thing? This basically tells you what exactly it is you're supposed to be doing. So from the operator to the waste manager and to the environmental health and safety officer, they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. We're just going up and referencing this straight away. We all use Google, right? This is basically a physical version of Google for a particular thing. Okay, you just go up and you consult the poster. Okay.
You have to produce each stream for every company separately.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but we don't.
Okay.
Company does. Okay. I'm going to do a demo there now. Improve waste management knowledge. So all stakeholders are informed of correct approaches, right? So basically, all you have to do is either replace the poster or replace the online documentation, and immediately. So the minute you publish from the application itself, it's live into your system. So if you just if somebody in Boston, okay, says we can no longer pick a compound, it has to be inerted first, then that person makes that change, and globally everybody gets that immediately.
There's no sending a Word document over here, or sending this thing, or emailing anybody. The minute he makes that change, every EHS manager gets notified. Okay, that's a massive thing. Okay, because basically, if you fail an EPA audit in the States, you're really up, creek. We improve waste segregation by and therefore maximize recyclation quality. Again, this is done to the Coke can, right? Like, did you just have a Coke can? I didn't have a Coke can. Did you rinse it out? I did rinse it out. Did you leave it there for a couple of hours? No, I didn't. I threw it into the bin. Well, now you've contaminated that entire bin of waste. So that was all supposed to be dry waste. Because of your one action of throwing a wet Coke can in there, you've contaminated or you polluted all the recyclate that's in your dry waste. So now that waste is worthless. Okay. So if a company can put strict protocols in place via this information dissemination mechanism, then they stand. No, it's not going to work perfectly 100%, but they stand a much better chance. Okay. And like I was completely unaware that a pizza box, for example, because the grease that's on a pizza box, you throw that into a dry recyclate, you contaminate the waste. Like, who would be? It's like, it's paper.
So that whole, say if you throw it as in the dry recycle, just paper, everything is gone.
It depends on the recycling facility. Like
as of norm, I suppose we just take.
Well, I'll give you an anecdote, right? Coke, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola built a multi-billion dollar facility in Scotland to recycle plastic Coke bottles.
Yes.
And they couldn't do it because basically the temperature of all the plastics, like so the wrapping and the cork and the actual container itself, they couldn't separate it. They were just ending up polluting the actual compound that was created at the end of the recycling process. Okay, so what Coca-Cola did instead was basically put up instructions: take the thing off, take the yolk off, and they just hired a load of people, and that was their job. Okay, they couldn't solve the problem through chemistry; they solved it through segregation. So segregation of waste is fundamental.
Reverse manufacturing as such.
That's all it is. It's what we call closed loop. Like so basically, like any waste you produce, you recycle it so that it can come back into the system. Because if you think about it, you've got three separate plastic compounds coming in there. You've got the cork, the bottle itself, and the wrapping around it. Right. So if you melt all that down into one compound, the compound is worthless.
Well, there's below the cork, there's still this donut, so to speak.
That's fine. That's fine though, because that's still part of the bottle itself. Like the problem is, like, is that you've got three separate kind of plastics there.
No, my point is that the donut.
Oh yes,
same plastic as the cork.
Yeah. So it is a massive problem, and the only way to do it is just through human intervention, segregate. So I'm like, why build a multi-billion-dollar plant to do all this furnace operation stuff, when you can just basically get a guy, or get the guy who drank the thing in the first place to just kind of go, there, there. Like it's a 5-second solution to a multi-billion-dollar problem.
And can they not use the same compound for each of the parts?
Sorry?
Can they not use the same compound for each of the parts, or is there different textures?
I'm not here, I'm not a plastics guy.
Yeah.
I just know what the problem is. Like.
I can make a note of that. Because the corks are made from different kind of plastic, because it tries to be more, it needs to be way more firm. So it needs to be different material.
I don't know about plastics.
And at the same time, the bottle can suffer. So it would be, if they made the bottle from the same plastic as the cork, it would be way more expensive. So it makes economic sense.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Yeah,
probably is an economics thing, like that. We just got a whole pile of this stuff, a whole pile of that stuff. Let's just stick all together. But that's the way that's the way everybody's thinking now. They're thinking about solutions to classical problems, or classical. I like to call them installs. Ways of doing things before, and now we're kind of going. Actually, that's wasteful. And that's not a good way of doing things. We see it all the time with sustainable engineering and green energy. The way that we used to do things before, where we had no problem, not insulating our houses, because we just turned the rats on a bit higher. Now we're insulating our houses. We're trying to keep the energy there. And again, this is not. Nobody is here flowers and puppies. This is economic sense. It's simple as. I'm like for example, like a friend of mine got outside cladding on a house that was basically costing him €1,200 a year, or sorry, what was it, €400 a month for heating. He got outside cladding onto the house. His house last year cost him €1,200 for the entire year to heat. This is not. This is. It does us good. It's for betterment of mankind. But when it comes down to it, if you really want people to change their mindset, it's the economy stupid.
The economics of heating, which you just told, is why in Eastern Europe, most houses will have layers of heat insulation, because they know certain ways it's going to be cheaper.
The most energy efficient houses in this country were the houses that were built pre-1820, because they were built for heat. There was no central heating. They were built to be warm houses. You know, when construction got cheap, etc., we just built stuff like because just turn on the rads. You know, when energy was cheap, that's when we built poor performing houses. But so but that's the way that everybody's thinking now. Well, hopefully, it's certainly the way the industry is thinking now. Industry is thinking we need to make more money from our waste. We need to be more sustainable, not because we want to save the planet or anything, not because it's economically it's the best shot in the long run. You know, everything that we have to turn on, for example, if we've got a building and we have to turn on the heating for that building, that costs us money. If we can do something, if we can make an intervention on that building that will basically reduce our heat loss, then that's going to save us money. Okay, because these companies plan long term. They don't plan for it's going to save you money in the next 6 months. Just like in 20 years' time, we'll make an awful lot of money, or we'll save a lot of money with this. Okay. So the demo. Oops. Product. Okay.
But if such an amount of grease is enough to contaminate, then my question is, what's the point of home sortation? Of home sorting? But if I have cheese in a plastic covering and I open and I take out the cheese, it's still grease, right?
It depends. Like cheese, the reason why you contaminate pizza boxes is because of melted cheese.
Okay.
So cheese in a fridge is in a solid state. It's not in a melted state. So
okay.
It's only when cheese sweats that it produces grease. So cheese in the fridge.
And what if I have a ham and the ham has juice in fact? And I have same kind of packaging, but then it's after ham. Well,
you see, the way they look at it is all that wet waste is actually fine. You can actually take wet waste and use it no bother. Okay, but the problem is that when the waste is mixed with dry, because of contaminated dry waste is incredibly, it's like gold, like dry waste.
Okay, so I can put wet plastic, but I can't put wet paper. Is that the logic of it?
No, you just can't put anything wet. So for example, newspapers, dry. Okay, packaging, the vast majority of packaging is dry. However, you put in something in there that's wet.
Sure, because my question is, if we sort stuff at home, then my guess is 80% of it will have some sort of humidity in it, because we have groceries in it, right?
No, it depends. It depends. Like for example, if you're dealing with any fresh fruit and veg, that's normally it's got micro holes in it, so that allows the fruit and veg to breed, so that it sustains. The way to sustain fruit and vegetables is to basically somebody here's food science. Does anybody hear food science? No. Well, I did a bit of food science, but the way to kind of make fruit and veg sustainable is to basically you put micro holes into plastic so that they breathe out through the holes. So even though it looks like it's contained plastic, it's not actually plastic. It's not. It's actually it's breathable. It's a breathable film.
Okay.
So you don't get that kind of degradation.
Because what I'm thinking about is that whether what I do at home when sorting trash, that actually make sense. Because the way I see it now is that I have, as a person who doesn't understand the whole process as in depth as a pro would, then I in fact randomly contaminate or don't contaminate at any given time my trash.
But it's pretty simple. Like, if something's wet, don't put it in. And like I know what you're saying with the humidity, like but chances are, like that the like things can only sweat if there's waste in the plastic itself. Like so you can't, like, how many times did you open up your recycling bag and find it moldy?
Oh, never.
Exactly. So therefore, like it can't sweat. It has to actually have a physical organic presence in the recycling line for it to make it sweat.
Okay.
So are we trying to validate the product for the consumer?
Sorry?
Are we trying to validate the product for the consumer?
No, I just been worried.
No, I'm like, to be honest, I didn't know any of this either myself until I started working on this project. And
But it's interesting that people have these questions, but if they have the question, maybe there's a chance of getting some pieces of information available.
well,
because I would like to sort my trash, and once I now hear that if I don't have certain kind of knowledge, then what I do makes no point. I mean, that's what I suspect that I didn't know.
well, but that's what I said at the start. Like, waste management is poorly understood. And like, and the instructions that come along are very aspirational. Dry plastics, like, and people are kind of like, well, there's no meat, or like, I just got rid of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it therefore it's dry. Like a pizza box, like, well, there's nothing there, but there's a big wet stain of grease in the pizza box, and people are like, oh, it's dry. Like,
I see.
but like, no, don't get me wrong. Like, it's more of a problem. Household waste is a big problem, like, because it's very poorly understood. People don't realize that, like, throwing in the empty milk carton that had just a small bit of, like, you hit it like that, and just a small bit of jumped in, like, and you've had.
But then if I see the way you say, the way you put it is that if I actually put the can, if I shake the can, and even if there's like a few drops in it, but I shook the can, it's still good enough because it's going to dry out by the time I'm going to put it out, right?
Yeah.
If I put take a box and I see no stains on it because there was some additional paper under the pizza, I can still be sure it's quite safe, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a clear line where I, as a simple consumer, can still be sure I'm doing the right stuff.
Welcome to DeltaStreams. If you walk up,
Okay, I'll take it home.
if you want to walk up, okay, let's say you've got domestic recycling.
From what you said, my judgment is I shouldn't put that out.
Oh yeah.
Does that?
Well, to be honest, like, that's not that severe. Like, but like, if you got melted cheese or something, there's no cheese in the pizza box.
So that is a yes or a no?
I would on earn some caution saying.
Okay, I will say because my judgment is we would.
So if you walked up to your bins, okay,
but I would then cut out this part, and this one would be good.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
Okay. And like, so let's say if you walk up to your bins, right, you got your pizza box here, and there's like all these kind of, doesn't have spots there that will still be there the next day, and then chances are it's wet, that aren't drying out, or etc.
Sure.
Does it have melted cheese in it? Does it have any organic residue on it?
Okay.
And yeah, chances are.
Okay.
But that's a poster for every home.
So the currently the operators in domestic waste.
Arrows.
Yeah, sorry, as in the operators, the companies.
Oh yeah.
They're playing us for fools.
No.
I mean, I put.
No, they're not.
My company takes glass.
Yeah.
Broken glass inside my.
Glass is different. Glass is very different because of the heating aspect of glass. You can dry the shit out of glass. If you try and dry paper or cardboard, like what's the easiest thing to burn? Paper. You try and dry paper, it's tough. If you try and get like wet out of paper, it's not easy.
But I would say that based on this, I thought we were reasonably good household in terms of waste.
No,
we're
the recyclability of domestic waste is around 15% now.
I'm surprised it's even that high. I mean, what you said there, because we put out a can. There's something in it. We can shake it off and throw it, but the basic one is a milk still in it, and the cup. Typically, one is the expression was squeeze it, you know, in order to condense the waste.
Yeah.
You know, you have an orange carton and you squeeze it and you put the cork back on it
Well, I'm like,
to make the vacuum when you bin it. So now it's as soon as that opens inside the factory, not only destroyed my bin.
well, no, if
it's
it's contained within the container itself, you're okay. It doesn't, I'm like, you know, this is all about, like, you know, leakage, you know, like, you know, about pollution, like, you know, it's about polluting the other recycler, you know. Whereas, like, to be honest, like, you know, I'd be there, like, you know, tin of beans, it was like, and then I never even thought about it. It was just like, well, that's metal, so.
We're not tweeting that, alright?
But again,
While we're streaming it, I can see it.
but like, but the thing is, though, is I'm like, you know, it's, you know, domestic waste. Like, we make too much of it. Like, you know, the fundamental problem is packaging. You know, packaging is a big problem there. You know? It's very easy to kind of get around domestic waste if you have smart enough packaging. You know, but the industries that we work on are industries are basically where there's significant amounts of recyclable waste that, if treated properly at source, can be recycled. You know, at the moment, like, you know, a lot of them, it just goes into a skip or a bin or whatever, you know.
It makes sense in the bulk scale of stuff that you know, per person down in Visors, our local farm company, the amount of recycling that they're going through per head down there would probably
it's not,
what you and I would ever do.
no, it's not so much the recycling they're going through down there, it's the waste they're going through down there. And like, what we're trying to do is, you know, get that waste, the percentage of recycling, massively increased. You know, and Pfizer's are pretty good for it, to be honest. You know? But Pfizer's deal with a lot of stuff that just can't be recycled. Like, you know, it has to be treated, etc., etc. You know, so, like, you know, when a lot of the stuff that leaves their plant does have to go somewhere and get treated, you know, in chemical plants, you know. But there's a lot of stuff that they use as well, which is recyclable, you know, and they all realize this. Like, you know, I'm like, a more kind of like more relevant example would be like electronics manufacturing company, you know, they're dumping out kind of busted PCB boards, busted boards left, right, and center. Like, the amount, your mobile phone, for example, you know, and like, there's actually a percentage of a gram of gold in every mobile phone, you know. And when you think about how many mobile phones are disposed every day, you've actually got a you know, significant quantity of gold. And like, this is why China is the recycling center of the world. There's a town in China, their entire existence for the last 40 years has been to recycle Christmas tree lights. It's not a joke, man. It's great.
Plus, China is the largest country in the world. Generally, I mean, the most under-resourced country in the world. So, like 90% of their, maybe I exaggerate, but generally, absolute majority of their resources are imported, physically imported.
Yeah. Oh, China's obsessed with reusing things. I mean, like, it's part of their culture. Like, you know, like, you'll find guys driving or cycling in the street in conflict boxes. Like, you know, they'll do that. Like, you know, they will reuse everything. Like, you know, whereas we in the West have a culture of disposal. You know, buy it, bin it. You know,
Do you feel the retailers should have more responsibility as well for packaging? I think I remember seeing an interview once, was it Holland, where they have a system where when you're coming out of the shop, you can actually take stuff out of packaging and put it straight.
Well, Ireland did it. Ireland did it. Plastic bag tax.
I suppose, yeah.
No. I'm like,
but for the actual packaging of, let's say, if you have a pack of apples now, you take the apples out, you put them into a packet, a thing you bring with you, and you put the.
Yeah, I've seen that across other places as well, like, you know, but that's the way it should be, like, you know, because when it comes down to it anyway, you're putting everything into one fucking bag anyway. And what's the problem with an apple touching an orange? I'm like, that's not going to, like, you're not going to keel over and die it because of food poisoning or something.
So how can DeltaStreams be helped by ourselves here tonight? What are you looking for? What's blocking you? What's stopping you? What's your next step?
Absolutely no blockage. It's like, I'm the CTO. I'm like, again, like, the CEO will probably answer that. Like, I just like.
What do you need?
Huh?
What do you need? I suppose what's your steps in business?
What's your next step?
Wish to progress.
No, he wants to see my demo.
Because
I actually had that.
Give us the demo.
All right, I've got to give you the demo, right?
Right.
I'm going to show you how fast it is. It's like a cookery program. I'm going to show you how fast it is to make a waste stream.
Something we made earlier.
All right, so I'm going to edit this poster. So we've got a couple of waste streams here already. Again, I'm not a waste manager, so I have no idea what the hell I'm doing with stuff. So I'm going to basically kind of go stream tools. I'm going to add a new stream here, and let's call it. Let's see if cans are in there. Oh, we've got cans, and cans are non-hazardous waste. But for the laugh, I'm just going to basically make them hazardous. I'm going to say these are corrosive. Okay, and so the stream color is changing now, you know, so it's basically indicating that it is hazardous. So I'm going to add a step and say you're going to process this by basically compacting all cans, right? And the person who's going to do that is the operator. Okay, and I'm going to, oops, sorry, this is actually blocking. Oh yeah, I can hear it. So I'm going to have a step here, and we're going to move our sign. No, I'm going to change that to. We're going to store all these cans in a green bin, and yeah, stick them all in that wheel bin. So then somebody's going to come along and they're going to move, and they're going to what will do? Yeah, placate it, and that's going to be the EHS department, and they're going to move it down to set down area. Okay, and so finally we're going to document it. Let's say it's going to be manifest form, and they're going to get that from the EHS department, and they're going to get it signed by the EHS manager. And finally, we'll have the last step, which is basically what are we going to do with it once it leaves the site. And we're going to say it's recycling. It's going to be collected by Veolia, or the waste manager provider, and it's going to be gone for recycling. And we'll go approve the stream. Okay. Oops, I haven't seen, and now we have this validation software in there that basically doesn't allow us to do something unless we've completed all the steps. So in other words, like we have to complete every, so it's a syntax. So you just have to do all the things that you have to do in regards to regulation, etc. So you must select the storage location for step 2. All right. So let's go to step 2. Actually, I'm going to hide the waste item memory. So we're step 2. So I'm going to store this in the canteen for the laugh, and it's going to be put there by the operator. So now if I approve the stream, click approve. So now I can do the following. I can preview the poster. So in other words, this is what it's going to look like when it gets rendered, right? But the poster has draft on it, so it's not validated yet. Okay, so we can't actually go away and create this yet. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that the EHS manager themselves does this. So they produce this. Okay. This also goes on to their local intranet. It creates an SOP scratch, or like, you know, so a Word document of exactly the same content. So it does a lot of smart techy things there, you know. But we have no involvement in this. So a guy with pretty much zero training, and then we've had clients who have gotten contracts with us and included training with it, and have rang us up like a week later and said, like, can we get our money back, because we don't need training on this thing. You know? They can actually go in and create these posters and create these intranet web pages and mobile phone applications as well. So like the poster is just one output of our publishing. Our publishings would be HTML and mobile apps. And so in other words, like you can publish out to a mobile application. So in other words, like when a guy, because some places you're not allowed to even have stuff on the wall. For example, clean room environments. When you're dealing with very, very dangerous waste, like, you know, we were laughing there that fell over, isn't that gas? Oh, I just dumped the carcinogenic stuff out of my head, right? And that's happened. Now, like the stuff falling off the wall. So that's why we have so many different modalities with regards to our publishing strategy. Again, everything to publish, we get money. Okay.
I see these pictures and types of waste and types of waste disposal are pretty fine. How do you collect these procedures first?
No, it's these are, like, we have an extensive library of around 2,000 waste items. So at any stage, I can come along. Like, for example, all right, let's just take.
My point being is that does every company have to bring in their own library or build up their own library?
No, there's an existing library there, but most companies prefer to build up their own library.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like, if I want to,
Am I right to guess that SMEs will prefer given library and bigger corporations will try to build up their own library?
Exactly. Yeah.
And
So
second question is, will they also try to build up their library internally without being available to the companies?
oh no, it's all separate. I'm like, it's your private library.
Oh, I see. Okay. It's in-house.
Like, there's a common library which is generic, which is open to all. But then anything that you as a company or an organization do is completely exclusive to you. So for example, like we have a whole pile of medical stuff in there for doctors and dentists, etc., that anybody can use. So let's go.
What you do here, you are helping companies to put their operational procedures into a visualization map.
Exactly, that's it. Yeah, and the reason why we do it is because of what I discussed earlier about the failings of operational procedures and training, that it's too verbose, it's too time consuming for the person who's writing this stuff to do it in the first place. Then, we've tried this, like we've actually sold this, but we've tried this in so many companies where their EHS managers who normally write these operating procedures, they would say it would take me around 4 hours to write one paragraph, or like having to refer things and blah blah on one particular waste item, and they said we managed to get it done in 5 minutes. Like we actually, anecdotally, I can't name the company, but a company are using a software now for their own internal review processes. So they're basically they're not consulting their SOPs anymore. So they all stand around there looking at the software. They're all logged into the software at the same time. They're all looking at it, kind of going, "Oh, what we should change that. No, that has to change. That has to change." We had a company who never used the software in their life ever. Okay, we're big Word document people, not technically literate. Pharma. We sold them a license. They launched the application, and they paid us money for support. They launched the application and developed 4 waste posters in 2.5 hours. Never used the software in their lives. We have received 2 support calls in a year and a half.
But we're talking here about waste, but there's other ways to apply this. So this could
Process.
be.
Yeah, other
I was just about to say that the whole idea of what we do here is peer-to-peer learning and Share is sitting down there, and her business is agri-tech, and it's as I understand it, process stuff for farmers. And I as soon as you were talking, Noel,
Yeah, but
about pens, I was thinking about fertilizer bags, and like it seems that concept might be a way that the visual stuff that a farmer's up in the field, and he can see that it's a bag of fertilizer, and click that, as opposed to what you were talking about doing. Just maybe something we should take up afterwards and see if
Well,
learn something.
we're involved in the agri space anyway, but more from the food perspective, with regards to we've a lot of discussions with Glanbia and Kerrygold and stuff like that, and again, a lot of they're all saying the same, because this is a really simple solution. There's no complexity to it. And again, there's vested interest by a lot of companies coming in selling complex solutions for a lot of money. And we sell the software for very little money, very little. I can't tell you what it is, but it's completely unprohibitive. And pretty much some of these guys take out their own credit cards and pay for it. Because to us, it's not about our sales objective is not about having maybe 4 or 5 clients and milking them, if you pardon the agri. But it's about basically getting this stuff into everywhere. And putting on my fucking this thing in the world hat. It's about trying to make sure that recycling is implemented and waste management is implemented better in all these companies. you know, because that will effectively help us all in the long run. You know? I know that sounds a bit chaotic or chaotic or whatever it is.
It's a sort of a mission.
Huh?
It's a sort of a mission.
Well, yeah, I'm like, but it's like, you know,
When I say that, I mean it positively.
yeah, but I'm look, I'm a programmer. I like to do things optimally, and currently this stuff isn't being done optimally. This is a solution that allows things to be done optimally. You know, it probably is more through my OCD than it is through any kind of like head planet kind of thing.
No, so I know most of our customers are related with recycling. That's what they are using the app now. No. So can you divide that?
Allow me to continue with my
Okay.
presentation. Oh, there we are. Okay, where's my thing? The thing that does no. Okay. All right. Present. View. So our current status. This is out of date. This is out of date by 3 months. So these are our clients. These were our clients 3 months ago. So we're dealing with. We got what? Pharmaceutical, Johnson & Johnson, Apple computers, Jaguar Land Rover, automotive, Bonnell and Tar Mines, mining, Biomarn is bio stuff. I can't remember what they are exactly. AbbVie, again, pharmaceutical, Analog Devices, computer, Teva, they're pharmaceutical as well, Cook Medical, medical devices, BASF, the chemical company. Since then, that graphic my CEO sent to me today is 3 months out of date. We have doubled that. We're currently in trial with 60 clients. We're aiming, fingers crossed, to cross 40 clients by the end of the year.
Cross what?
40 clients by the end of the year.
Is this 30, right?
Sorry?
I don't speak well Irish, so to speak. Is it
I
30?
don't speak well Irish either. You shake them off.
It's 30, right?
40. We're looking to.
40, right?
At the moment, I think it's around we've 18 to 20, and we're aiming by the end of the year to get 40. Right now, we're picking up a client every week. So we're just hoping that holds out. But then again, we're at the right time of the year now because there's a lot of auditing going on. So a lot of people are basically trying to pick up our software for audits, which is a bizarre thing. The particular company had an accident on their site. They got audited. They were basically told, "You're going to fail your audit." They had just bought our software, just as completely serendipitously. They had just bought our software, and they said, "Well, is this sufficient?" And the auditor, EPA auditor, said, "If you're going to implement this plant-wide, yeah, you'll pass your audit." So in other words, like what we cost that company is pittance compared to what they would cost if they fail the audit. Other companies that we've dealt with, particularly a number of those companies on that list, have resold our software to other clients. They basically said, "You need to bring these guys." Right? One company in particular has gone to a global office, and the global office has now said that anybody who wants to work with that company with regards to waste management has to use our software.
So that's something like we also have a few global companies here. So they are using your software locally, or they are then applying that globally to their own subsidiaries.
Yes.
Yes.
Somebody see my finger. Can you read, like?
Oh, no, nobody will see your finger.
Are planning to roll out worldwide, and we're dealing with probably 180 plants worldwide.
No, that's the most interesting part.
Does your software allow, like, does it follow any regulations? I mean, or does it let people do anything? Like, can you recycle chemical waste and say that's perfectly fine?
It is perfectly fine, based on the company's own internal procedures.
So you don't check their procedures against any standardization?
No, we can't, because there's no such thing as standardization, because basically if you're an American company, you have a completely different set of standards compared to an Irish company, compared to a German company. The EU has a fuzzy set of standards, which are pretty good, but the American market is pretty much a free-for-all. You can do whatever you want. You know, there are certain fundamental things you can't do, but there's a lot of things that are like open to interpretation. You know, I mean that's why they end up polluting rivers up Massachusetts, left, right, and center. You know, like Boston, big farm industry up in Boston, some people think it's defensible to pour this particular thing in there if it's a concentrate that is only a certain part per mil. Other people think that that's actually way too high. We need to bring it down to this. That's a kind of regulation issue. You know, and like all we do is basically allow them to disseminate the waste management information themselves. You know, so we are in the process of doing one of our early targets is to do data mining, so we can intervene and make interventions and basically say, did you know that you can also do this instead of doing that? You know, because basically they're telling us exactly how they're handling your waste. So we can basically intervene and basically say, why are you dumping all this stuff in the landfill? Are you not aware that you can actually make, that there's 500 companies in your location that are actually using this stuff to go recycle and make money back?
That would be amazing predictive waste management. Everybody knows ALS, for instance. ALS campaign was the ice bucket.
Oh yeah.
The actual thing that happened, except the people putting water on themselves, is that what they funded with the cash was a big database of people putting in, having ALS, what they do to prevent certain syndromes or to fix certain syndromes, and also data what their age at, gender is, or their other conditions are, and any other ALS person can see upon real life data stream how given treatments or ideas for treatments as simple as chewing gum or not chewing gum, but because it's as basic as sometimes the experiments can increase or decrease future state of the patient. And my point being is that if you have this kind of data about waste, well, that can be even a bigger money saver than the procedure themselves that you're doing now, actually.
Yeah, I mean that's it. Like, I mean, this is kind of like the whole kind of point of this was that we could exploit this information, not exploitation in a kind of mercenary perspective, but just basically like we could recommend better ways of dealing with your waste.
Yeah.
Again, Delta is just like we're such lovely people, we just want to make their world this thing. But no, I mean, but it was kind of thing that it's very difficult, this one thing about big data, it's very difficult to see the big picture, and big data allows you to do that. Like a big data distills problem models into much more easier to understand or rationalize kind of explanations. And that's one of the things that we wanted to do at the start, was that we wanted to get a lot of this data and figure out what are people doing with the waste, and is there any way that we can come up with something that would actually change that.
Can I ask you, when you're looking for that data, sometimes when people look at big data, sometimes they don't want to believe in what they see because their assumptions are proved wrong. Do you come across anything when you're looking for that data that you're actually surprised?
No, we haven't explored that properly. But I've worked on other projects where we've done machine learning. For example, we did a project for Copenhagen Airport where we analyzed, we did path analysis on signals moving through, Wi-Fi signals moving through the airport itself, and it was used by their actual facilities department with regards to the price of square footage in the airport. So it was they could quantifiably come along and say well, 95% of people are walking through this area on the way to checkout or on the way to the gates. So basically, you have to pay a lot more than the guy over there, who's only 5%. He's getting 5% of traffic. That's what big data. That's what the IoT does. The Internet of Things. It gives you quantifiable data that you can actually turn around and say, this isn't a hunch. This isn't an estimate. This is actual data. And data doesn't lie.
Yeah, no, that's why. Because sometimes I see people being surprised when they see when they do those massive data mining, and suddenly, oh, it's not possible. But data doesn't lie.
Data doesn't lie.
Yeah.
Well, the way you model a problem.
Yeah.
You can skew the model. You can skew the fucking the way you're explaining the problem. Right? But right, let me just keep going. Yeah, we have HPSU status for enterprise learned.
What is HPSC status?
High potential startup.
What?
High potential startup.
Okay, good.
Whereas most of us are high all the time. So, anyways, so look, we've been doing this with DeltaStreams for the last 3 years, and it's been very, very hard, very, very hard. So I'd like to just kind of maybe touch on a couple of things with regards to startups. Right? So this is outside of the remit of DeltaStreams. It's just like I've been working with startups for 20 years now. I've seen some of them do very well. I've seen some of them do very bad. But I just kind of like being in plus 10, you see a lot of positivity all the time, and you see a lot of kind of like, obstacles and stuff like that, and I think, DeltaStreams we're getting there, we're aiming to be self-funded by, we had an initial round of funding, with friends and family, and a couple of grants and stuff like that, but now we're hoping to be completely self-funded by the end of the year. So in other words, we'll be an actual commercial entity making money, etc. But it's been very, very hard, very, very, very hard. Okay, and so I'd just like to maybe talk about that a small bit, because I think if you get in, I think there's a culture of people getting involved in startups and not realizing, what's involved in it. I think it's one of the most traumatic experiences ever. And I'm not. There's no joke here. It is absolutely brutal. But it's also one of the most rewarding experiences. It's one of the things that you will always walk away from it. You will never lose anything if you work with a startup. You can spend 5 years of life working for Microsoft and come out of it exactly the same as you were when you walked in the door. If you work 5 months in a startup, you'll come out a different person and with a better experience. However, you have to go into that door with your eyes wide fucking open. Right? So yeah, so this is, I think, like the reason I start with this is because basically I think 95% of startups don't start with this. When it comes down to it, sales, full stop. There's no brand. I'm like, look, you can get anybody to make your code. You can get anybody to design your website. But if you have no idea how you're going to make your sales, you're dead in the water, right? So, and fundamental thing is you have to know your market, okay? And I will never go to NASA and tell them how to build a better rocket ship, right? I just never will do that. That's why I'm as smart as fuck. I can do all cloud stuff and all that, but I've never done a startup in my life. I've never built a startup on my own because basically I have no domain expertise. I can understand I can model a problem, blah blah. But when it comes down to it, like when somebody comes up and says, you know what really pisses me off? Buses. I'm like, I don't know, tell me why. I can't come up with a solution for buses because I have no idea about buses, right? So if somebody comes up to you and says, I have an idea for this, say, oh, have you worked in that area? No, but I have an idea for it. Get worried, right? Invest in contacts. Contacts is an interesting word, right? Very interesting word. There are contacts and there are contacts. There are people who tell you that you should be contactable and that that they're the kind of contacts you need, and they're the real people you need to contact. Okay. It's no accident that we're here in this room and there's another thing going on in another room, another area. These probably people in this room are people that need to be contacted. What that means is that basically there's bullshitters and just people who do stuff, right? There's a lot of people who blow smoke up your ass for so long that you don't know how to turn around, right? Then there are people who will actually basically say, I'll put you in contact with this guy, this guy, and this guy, and they'll go and do it. It's a hard one, especially for startups, because you don't know. The startups tend to attract people looking for the quick buck. People who kind of like, I'll get in there now, and I'll go out in a blaze of glory. And they're involved in, anybody who's involved in a lot of startups, be worried, be very worried about them, because basically they're not invested. Okay, what you want is somebody who's invested, somebody who's basically kind of going, I like what you're doing, I believe in what you're doing, let's go. Like, I'll put you in contact with this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. I'm going to help you out. Okay, they're hard to find. We got lucky. We got very lucky. Very, very lucky. And I've seen other companies that where this happened as well, and they've gotten very lucky. But I've also seen companies have fellas turn up and say, "You're the next best thing to the sliced pan," and nothing happens. First impressions last. I am so lucky. My CEO, Andrew Sullivan, is one of the most politest, happiest, nicest professional guys I've ever met in my life. This man will walk into the room and he will say hello to everybody, shake everybody's hand, walk out with a smile, and everybody can go, "He's a nice guy." You know?
Will he be listening?
Unfortunately, actually, I hope not, because I probably said a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have. But it matters. It really does. Like, it helps. That's the reason why it puts me into these people. Like, it helps to be personal. You know? And there's a way. I've seen this with startups where they become obdurate, like they become stubborn about their idea, and they're like, no, it's my idea, like, and that's it, And when people kind of say, "No, I don't think there's much to that," like, they become aggressive or defensive about it. It's just like simple, like, well, that's your opinion. Shake hands, talk to you later, John, and move on. I have seen companies blow deals. I've been involved in companies that have blown deals because basically somebody in the room has said, "I don't think there's much work to this," like, and then have the guy freak out, like, and kind of go, "Well, I don't think you know what you're talking about," and then watch, like, 25,000 euro just walk out the door, like, oh, if you think it's funny, it's not funny, because basically I needed my rent, and this guy blew it. Like, you think that's funny? There's nothing funny about this, like, this is not shits and giggles, lads. Like, this is, like, this is eviction notices, like, I've just been here all bloody year, like, spoil your first adopters, right? I don't have any background in sales, but this is just what I've witnessed from other people, right? People who pick up your software, people who evangelize your software, people who like your software, do everything for them, even if it's completely batshit nonsensically crazy. Right? If they come along and say, "Oh, would it be possible if I could click that button and then make the world turn over on its side?" No water way. We'll have that sorted by Monday, right? You need evangelists. You need evangelists in the industry. You need evangelists who carry weight. So, because it's not so much that they're kind of basically like giving you a thumbs up, is that when all these people talk in multinational Ireland, the multinational the world, okay, there's a whole networking thing, they all talk, okay? So if a guy is just basically there, "Oh, I used the software last week, like, it was brilliant." And you've got to remember, right, that all these management guys are all trying to basically get promoted, right? Especially in America, I don't know if you know much about the way management works in America. You have to bust your ass, and then you get into the golf course. Then you're off, just like that, for while the guy underneath you is doing 18 hours a day for 7 days a week, because then he will get promoted up. So anything that they can get advantage or get any way that they can say, "Look what I brought to the table," they will love it. So what you need is these guys shouting from the rooftops that, like, hey, look at me, look what I brought. Look what I brought to the table. Okay. Now, granted, my sales idea is skewed with regards to multinationals. That I don't deal with kind of large scale software. Tech, which is the kind of thing I know about. Prototype early and prototype often, and prototype with a fucking point, right? So build something that is understandable, doesn't get out the door in a week, and that has a point, right? Don't build something that basically is like, this might work 5 minutes there. Work lean, agile, and rapid. In other words, if the company, like, tomorrow morning loses all its funding, at least there'll be one guy there who can turn on the button. Like, just press, there has to be. Worst thing that happens to startups is that basically they inherit a lot of stuff, and then they kind of go, "Oh no, we've no money now. Everybody has to be let go." And it's like, well, we can't do that now because he's not there and that's not there and blah blah blah. It's just pretty much one guy until you're confident of your funding, confident of your money. Only one guy. Never have more than one person program ever, because basically what happens is that you bring in other people and that person will leave and you can't afford to pay them, and then all of a sudden it's like, how do we build our database again? Oh, he used to do that, or she used to do that. No, like, one person, lean, okay? Agile, in other words, like, get it done that day, and rapid, get it done as fast as humanly possible that day, okay? Your MVP does not mean you're ready for market. Whoever came up with the fucking 3 letters MVP needs to be beaten to death, right? MVP is
Most
the
valuable-
worst.
Most valuable player.
MVP is one of the
Yeah.
stupidest buzzwords I've ever heard. Because what happens is that people have co-opted MVP into thinking that they lose the word most valuable and think it's product. They go out in the market and they go, here you go. Which leads on to your customers are not your test base. If you build an MVP and you release it into market, your customers are your test base. And what'll happen? You're just going to end up with customers kind of going, I use that, it's crap. So your spoiled first adopters and first impressions last, those 2 value propositions are out the window.
Sorry, I didn't get what you meant then. No. Do you mean like our MVP, we shouldn't get something out there that's messed up or something that
Never launch an MVP.
okay, when should we launch?
You launch,
We have something perfect, almost perfect.
you launch when that proposition is fixed. In other words,
So
like,
your customers are not your test
when
bed.
you're satisfied that your customers are not your test base.
Okay, can I just ask you a question? Make it a personal thing now. We ran into a wall sort of with one project where we booked tickets, going to our marketing campaign, we set up dates to do roadshows, and we just found out that we have our development to have our full platform ready. It's going to take another month.
Mhm.
And then so we sort of thought, I don't know if this is good. We sort of said, okay, there's one platform, but we said we'll build half of it, so it's working, and then we'll go test it.
No, don't seriously, I tell you,
Yeah.
don't. I've seen companies screw up because of it.
Okay.
They've gone out in the market with MVP and not product. Like so it's, like the definition of MVP is so tenuous at best. Like, you know, so they've gone out in the market and going like, here we go. And what happens is that you go into the first client, and the first client kind of goes, I love this. Here's a check, or here's my credit card. I'll have it ready for tomorrow. No, you're fucked. Because how do you explain to that client? It's not ready just yet. When will it be ready? In a month's time. A month's time, where is it? It'll be ready in another month's time.
So what's ready? Because it's obviously can't be perfect. So what's ready? Ready is it must be able to do what you said it does.
It should be at least a beta, but it should also have data integrity. Like, so in other words, like, if a user puts in data into it, we can guarantee that data will stay there and not be corrupted or polluted.
Okay. We'll talk
Like, so it's like you know, that any information the user puts up there will not be exposed and will also be persisted.
So what you're actually saying is that the point where it should be delivered to the market is where it's actually operational.
Oh no, so it needs to be more than operational. It needs to be functional and
Like your core features.
No, when I say operational, it means it does what it says to do, not it just fixed doing what it does.
yeah, but it's also safe.
Hmm?
It's also safe.
Well, okay, I mean, in your case, it's safety is important. It's important because it is internal procedures.
Yeah. There's a thing called sanity testing. Like, you know, sanity testing is basically a strategy, like, you know, where you look through every function of your application and you write, like, it should do this. If I click this, it should do this. And the result of this should be that my balance goes up by €10. Like, you know, so in other words, like, if I enter the number €10 into this and press transmit, it ends up €10 into it. Like, you know, and these are all these sanity tests go on. Like, you know, you get a sanity test document could be 60, 70 pages long. As long as it passes every aspect of that sanity test, then it's considered functionally complete or
Because
operation complete.
That's actually simple testing, right?
It's not that simple because we have them. We have a sanity test for DeltaStreams, and you would be surprised the amount of times that fails. It's block releases, like, and thank God it's block releases because we're dealing with highly sensitive information that companies are giving us. So the last thing we want is that information to be anyway compromised. So we need that sanity test document. Okay? But basically, what I'm saying is, like you know, with startups, we rush to MVPs. Well, we rush to MVPs, and I think it's a bad thing. I think MVPs, people don't understand. It should be minimal viable prototype, not minimal viable product. It should, in other words, like, a prototype to show people what it is that you want to do. Because if you say the word product to somebody, somebody's going to turn to you and go, can I buy it? And the minute they say, can I buy it? And you're kind of going, shit. Look at. And again, if they do buy it, you end up with your customers as your test base. And if you piss off a customer, they'll be very quick to turn around and say, no, enough is enough. Design to the millimeter. Okay, do not design to the fag packet. Have you ever designed to the fag packet? You've been working here long enough to know that there's people who come in here and basically turn up with a fag packet of it, and the design is written on the back of it. Can you go, build that for me there, please? Okay. If you design to the millimeter, you'll get what you want. If you design to the abstract or the fag packet, you'll get whatever the hell it is you think they meant in the first place. And what happens is that they'll come along and say, that's what I wasn't said. That's not what I wanted. And be like, well, that's what you told me in your 3-line email. You know, build Amazon except beige. Okay. This is massively important. I think every startup needs to really get this into their heads. Always think usability. Okay. Your customer, right? Whoever they might be, you're there for them, not the other way around. It's not your solution. Okay. It's not basically, here's my solution, you use it. It's basically, here's our solution. How can you make it better for us? Right? Seen this time and time again, where guys go out stubborn as fuck, right? And say like, here's how we do it. So, well, if you change it, no, because we're awesome, right? Startups, I know by the very nature, have to have a bit of, you know, cojones and all that, like, you know, and then just try and basically, like, you know, push forward their vision, etc., etc. But when it comes down to it, the minute your customer says no, you immediately listen to them, okay? And always justify your features. The amount of times I worked on applications where it's like, if I could, I want to connect to Twitter and Facebook as well. And I'm like, why? There's no social media aspect to this application at all. This is basically an application that, you know, measures your diet or your blood pressure. Like, and I'm like, it's like, oh yeah, because I want to share my medical information with the world. You know, that's why you don't. But that's why you don't use Google though.
I want to share my track with the world.
Yeah. Completely pointless features. Okay, that people think that are relevant because they get washed up with, like, you know, you have to justify your features. You have to be able to stand in a room with everybody else and they say, here's why we do this, right? And nobody can come along to you and say, no, that's bullshit. You know, you have to be able to kind of basically say, this is what we do, this is what we do. I know this from DeltaStreams is basically myself, who's a computer programmer, Andrew, who's industrial visualization guy, and Yasmin, and she's a graphic designer. We have had screaming matches, like, and we would go on for hours about features, about whether it's pointless or worth it or nothing. We never wrote a line of code or not one line of design. We just basically had it out and we just kept going at a wall and just kept kind of going, no, this is why it should be this. Like, we have just screamed at each other. Not one time, every single person had a vote. And it was, you know, we all had the same percentage, 33%. But if nobody could, if one person couldn't justify their vote to other two people, then it didn't happen. Okay?
No, so who's driving change and implementation? Customer requests or yourselves?
Out of all of it, no, in the last 3 years, it's only been around maybe 10% customer requests. Most of it has been us because we designed this to pieces. Again, as I said, prototype early, prototype often. We went through 2.5 years of prototyping, and we only launched the product properly in January last year. We just prototype, and we debated. We designed this thing. You should see the design documents. Like, the design document itself is around, you know, maybe at this stage now 85 pages, including around 40 UI mockups in Photoshop. We really went to town on this, like, you know. But again, when we went to marketplace, we had a very, very highly polished, highly professional product that had a lot of stuff covered in it, you know. And finally, startups. I'm 40 years of age. I've been working with startups for 20 years, and it's not pleasant, like. You know, and I know there's this kind of culture at the moment, like, you know, where it's like, hey bro, start it, you know. It's not, it's far from it. Like it's actually very, very painful. No, it's commendable that people get into it, but you have to you have to know what you're getting into, you know. One of the things that I find with a lot of startups is they have ideas, but they don't have revenue streams. In this day and age, if you don't have a revenue stream, and I know this from going through funding rounds with VCs in the last year, if you don't have, and like DeltaStreams, like, you know, we're on track to be self-funded by August. We've gone through VC funding, and even despite the fact that like our projections and our actual money in the bank was proving our projections, they're still so conservative with regards to revenue streams. They're basically saying, like, you think you'll make that much, but we're already making half of that. And you're like, you're only making half of it. You know? The days of like, we think we'll make this much, here's a lot of money, are gone. You know? All VCs now, especially in Ireland, require that if you don't actually have a revenue stream, that you have a very well-defined revenue stream. The revenue stream has to be unique. Okay, it has to be something that basically like nobody's tapped into. They don't give a shit about your idea. It's about your revenue stream. It's basically nobody's made money on that before. I'll do it. They couldn't give a shit about your idea. They really don't. They really don't. What all it is to these people is basically, what's your revenue stream? How are you going to make money for us? Okay. Engage cautiously with funding. Is that not recording anymore, is it?
That's what it's being always. Yeah. The world is still watching.
The world is still watching.
Fergus, you go on to more things?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got these and that, and I finished.
Yeah. And then Fergus will wrap up.
Yeah. Engage cautiously with funding. I've filled out so much paper.
We're still broadcasting.
I know I am, but right, I've engaged so much. I've filled out so many forms and applications over the last 20 years that I've submitted 3 patent applications, around fucking, like 15, you know, forms into EI and, you know, Elio or Leo and all that. That's like, you know, it's not worth it. Like, you know, unless, to be honest, like, you know, for me, it's friends and family funding. Like, you know, it's saying if you can't convince your friends and family to invest, then EI or any of those people, they're not going to invest. You know, EI, they're very useful from networking perspective, etc. But you know, to get 25 grand of funding from one of these gangs, like, you know, you'll go through a month of filling up paperwork, and when it comes into it, that's a month that you're losing when you should be working on your idea. You know? So no, I've never had to kind of really engage with that stuff myself, but I've seen the hardship other people have gone through, and if I was I would last resort. You know, like I know there are professionals out there who are professional form fillers. You know, that's all they do. They have startup ideas and they fill out the forms and know exactly what to say and what box to tick. But when it comes down to it, it's the doers that do it. Okay. Pick the right shareholders. If your company is any good, you'll get a lot of people sniffing around, but only get the shareholders that basically are going to bring something to the table. We're very lucky in DeltaStreams. Our shareholders are phenomenal. They're absolutely brilliant. Like, again, just in the waste management industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, like, these people didn't put up like stupid amounts of money. Like, they put up very, very modest sums, but what they brought to us is invaluable. You know, for 5 grand, we got a guy who's a CEO of blah blah. You know, like, really great stuff. Like, you know, so just don't jump because somebody comes along and says, "I'll give you money for that." Just be careful of them. Like, you know, roll with the punches. With DeltaStreams, we've had a lot of setbacks. Like, you know, we've had, especially in Ireland, we've had, for example, we launched. We had one incredible setbacks. Like, where basically we had a contract lined up just before launch with a company for a significant amount of money, and the guy involved in the contract dropped it of a heart, and that basically set that contract back. It's only coming back on the street now. That was like 18 months later. You cannot, like, because again, you're a startup, you don't have a big pile of money behind you. Like, you know, you're just basically holding out and you're waiting for it. Like, and then the shit happens. Like, you know? I've never seen a lucky startup. You know, I've just seen unlucky startups constantly. Like, you know, And the final thing is basically hold out, because you know, if you believe in your product and your product is good enough, it will happen. You know, but you have to be able to rationalize holding out. Okay, I got 3 eviction notices this year. I've been eating Calvita singles and toast. Okay, but I'm still there. I could easily upper because I've been doing it for 20 years, but I'm still here with Delta because basically I really believe what they're doing, you know, and I think that they're a good company and they're going to do well. But you have to be able to say that to yourself, especially if you've got a partner, right? You have to be able to turn around to them and say, I can't afford to pay the rent, you know, like, unfortunately I don't, but I did, and I lost it because of it. Okay, and it's not easy. Okay, and so if you're going to get into it, you're going to have to really get into it. Okay, because nobody makes $1 billion without sacrifice. You know? So, DeltaStreams.
Thanks very much, Noel.
Over.
I was, whoever thought the waste was so intriguing.
Really?
Before we finish, Shane O'Brien of iSave will be our founder next week. He's got just 30 seconds to whet our appetite.
I don't know if you even waste your appetite. I don't think next week's going to be as interesting as that.
Really?
Many backstories, no. We're a newly formed startup. And I'm looking forward to telling you about, I suppose, where we've come in the last year and our plans are for the next 6 months, 12 months.
Oh yeah.
Great.
Can I go to the pub now for a minute?
You can.
Yay!
Okay. I don't know.